What's up, everybody? It's Josh, your host, back again with another Kansas City Chiefs related video. I got stuff falling behind me. Hopefully, no one heard that. Anyways, I got a very special guest on today, Pete Smith, who is the editor over at SI Browns. And Pete, let us know how you're doing today, and let the people know what you do and where they can find you on social media.
I'm good. You can find me on social media or on Twitter at _ Pete Smith _ Browns Digest SI is the sort of antiseptic version. And you can find us all the work we do at si.com/NFL/Browns.
All right, sounds good. So I won't waste too much time. Once again, we'll jump right in. So Pete, I just want to know from you, what is the vibe going into this game from kind of the Browns perspective? Like, what vibe do you get from fans? Do they feel like they have to win this game? I mean, obviously you want to win, but is this a game they feel like they have to win? Like, where does this game rank on the spectrum of importance for Browns fans?
I would say that like everybody in the NFL, it's one of those things where if they lose, it's going to be the end of the world. And if they win, they're going to the Super Bowl type thing. I think there's a lot of confidence within Browns fans. Maybe some of it against the Chiefs this early might be a little misplaced, but in general, I think there are two segments of Browns fans. There are the people who sort of look at last year and go, no, this team's really good. This is the year. And then there are another section of Browns fans who have this built up PTSD where they assume something somehow, some way is going to fall out and it's going to be like it was in 2019 or 2008, where they had a lot of promise and then for some reason irrationally fell apart. Realistically, they're really good. The problem is they play the Chiefs week one. The Chiefs know exactly who they are, and the Browns, in a lot of ways, are still figuring this out. When the schedule came out, I was sort of just disappointed that it was week one. I totally understand why the NFL did it, but I was kind of hoping like week 3, week 4 to get a better indication, because I think ultimately this will likely be a playoff preview. And this is one of those things where the matchup in week 1 may not be very representative of what it's going to be like, come January, potentially February.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I will tell you what, Pete, if I am a Browns fan, I would actually prefer playing the Chiefs earlier on than later on. Reason being, because when you look at the Chiefs and how many changes they made this offseason, especially along the offensive line where they got 3 rookies that are slated to start, it's going to take some time for them to gel. And, it's going to take longer than week 1. And I think this is the perfect time to catch the Chiefs, while I don't even think they still really completely know what they're doing. Same thing could be said for the defensive side of the ball too, where, it's just a young up and coming defense that hasn't played too much together yet.
Yeah, obviously the big question, and I think we all assume he will play, is what's going to happen with Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, if he's in there, obviously he's a big piece of it. If he's not, I don't think it's the end of the world. I really like the backup safety who's going to play nickel for you guys. I loved him coming out of Virginia. So yeah. I don't think it's the end of the world, but obviously that'd be a big, Juan Thornhill, fantastic at Virginia. I think that's obviously going to be a big factor in, I think, confidence more than anything else. But the issues that the Chiefs face offensively, and I'm not sold yet on Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle, given what the Chiefs are trying to do. Right. But Browns have Greg Newsome is a rookie. He's going to be starting. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a rookie. They're going to use him a lot, particularly against teams like the Chiefs. Malik McDowell is one of the more interesting stories in the NFL. He's effectively a rookie, even though he was drafted in 2017 by the Seattle Seahawks. His preseason games were the first preseason games he's ever played, and this will be the first regular season he's ever played. And he may have a big role at nose. So there's a lot of these pieces that haven't done anything. Takk McKinley who was a huge part of their plan, particularly for teams like the Chiefs, was out basically a month for personal reasons. Now he's back, but these are all guys that haven't been there or are brand new, and you just don't know what they're going to give you on week one. So in that standpoint, there's a lot of these moving pieces on the Browns defense that sort of give you pause going against, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill.
Sure, absolutely. But that being said, do you have a favorite matchup in this game, or like just a matchup you're looking at in particular that stands out, whether it's two players, one on each side, or a position group? Like where's somewhere that you're thinking the Browns and Chiefs are going to be in a dogfight?
Well, this is really about Joe Wood's vision for this defense, because everything they did in the offseason was to defend teams like the Chiefs and teams like the Chiefs. Like the two teams that stood out the most, and everybody said it was really about the Ravens, but realistically, it was about the Chiefs and the Bills. Two teams that can basically say, we're not even going to pretend to run the ball, and we're still going to put up 40 on you. And that's their whole action. So Myles Garrett obviously is a phenom on one side of the line. They bring in Takk McKinley to give them speed that can pressure somebody like Patrick Mahomes, who likes to extend plays and sort of run around. That's going to be interesting to see what that looks like, if they can, because he's fast enough that he can actually put pressure on him. And then you're potentially going to be blitzing JOK quite a bit, in the same way that the Bucs kept using Devin, what's his face?
White.
Devin White. It's the same way they just kept blitzing him. And obviously the Chiefs were in bad shape for that, but the same concept applies, where just guys who are faster than Patrick Mahomes potentially attacking him. And they have three guys who can do it. They still have Clowney. So I'm certainly curious to see how Creed Humphrey does in his first game. I'm fascinated to see what they see in Trey Smith. That believes them to believe he is like a revelation at right guard. And then obviously Lucas Niang is technically a rookie because he opted out last year, but they have these just massive tackles. And it looks to me like they're sort of set up to basically be this meat wall in front of him. So if Patrick Mahomes wants to get the ball out really quickly, he's gonna never have an issue with doing it. The issue is they don't move well. So if Patrick Mahomes tries to extend plays and create with his legs, as he always has done that going back to Texas Tech, how are they going to handle that? And is he going to then get himself in trouble doing that? Which is why I have questions about Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle. If you're just sending speed off the edge to try to counter Mahomes, I don't know how much he's going to help you. Now, just straight on, power rusher types, I think he's going to be outstanding. But that's sort of the question. I'm curious where the rubber meets the road on that particular matchup.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting perspective, because I kind of noticed the same thing in preseason. That you're questioning is, if he tries to run outside the pocket and do what he typically does, are these tackles going to be able to move well enough to support that? And while Lucas Niang and Orlando Brown do move extremely well for a guy that big, they're still, they're not, you can't expect them to be flying around the way the Chiefs tackles have done in the past, at least not right now. I noticed a few times that he ran out of the pocket and he was getting chased around a little bit, because Niang and Brown, they aren't really guys that do that. Like you said, they're going to create a pocket for Patrick Mahomes to stand in and have all day in. And then on the other side, if Patrick Mahomes does have a good pocket from his offensive line, another thing that I've noticed and something that he's going to have to get used to is stepping up in the pocket and making throws in the pocket, because I feel like he's so used to running outside the pocket these last couple of years. He's been pressured so much that it's awkward for him to stand in the pocket or step up in the pocket when he has a perfect opportunity to do so. And he might look a little bit off early in the season.
Yeah, look, there are fans here who are still not over Mitchell Schwartz, and then Eric Fisher. And I know Eric Fisher was like the ultimate whipping boy in Kansas City, but
he was.
They were two guys who could actually get out and at least combat that. And now, like you said, he has to step up in the pocket because he's essentially on his own at that point. So that's interesting to me. That's, obviously they're hoping that with as much beef as they have up front, it's going to hopefully give them a little bit more running the ball with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We'll see this, but yeah, I'm curious to see if Mahomes is going to be able to be, I don't want to say disciplined enough because I don't think that's the issue, but he is fighting a little bit against his nature to be in the pocket and stay in the pocket, where he was athletic enough and strong enough with his arm that he could go anywhere he wanted and be great. So that's interesting. So like I said, the Browns, based on paper, they're in phenomenal shape to defend the Chiefs, but two rookies, a guy who hasn't been there in a month, another guy who's effectively a rookie, this is where week one, it's tough, but we'll see, how's that essentially rookie right side going to work versus a Browns defense where, we'll see if they decide to just have Joe Hayden follow or Denzel Ward follow Tyreek Hill around, or if we're going to have situations where Greg Newsome is going to be on Tyreek Hill, that becomes a potential opportunity. But they're so much better at the safety position this year that they have at least options in how they want to defend Travis Kelce. John Johnson, I would argue from a Browns perspective, is like the biggest free agent signing they've had since like the 90s.
Sure.
He's somebody who can defend a tight end. Ronnie Harrison is somebody who I think he's poised for a big year, can defend the tight end. Maybe they have JOK do some. I really don't think they're going to ask him to cover Kelce.
I don't either. I saw him say something about that, and sorry to cut you off, but I'm just like, man, I don't know about that, because we saw how, they put Denzel Ward on Kelce in that playoff game, and that did not end well.
Yeah, it's just a tough spot. And they may just put a guy like Sione Takitaki on the field and just ask him to jam Kelce off the line every time and then basically pass him off to somebody else. So this will be an interesting test for them, because this will be the first time they get to see somebody like Kelce and how they want to defend it and the number of options they have. But like I said, they're really well set up to do it. Now they have to actually prove they can do it.
Yeah, sure. And then also going back to the Browns D-line versus the Chiefs offensive line a little bit, and those three rookies on the right side. One player that I think Chiefs are kind of underrating, Chiefs fans, is Jadeveon Clowney, because he is a guy that has caught a lot of flack. And I know he was talking trash a little bit. I think it was last week about the Chiefs offensive line. And while Clowney is a guy that doesn't hit home a lot, when you actually look at his numbers beyond the box score and read into the analytics and stuff, he's actually a guy that has been one of the better defensive ends at generating pressure and getting really close. But going up against a rookie tackle in Lucas Dieng, I'm interested to see how he handles that. And then also, I just have a question about a guy in particular on the Browns, since I haven't heard a lot about him this offseason. I am a Mizzou fan, so I'm a big fan of Jordan Elliott. Do you think he is going to be a factor at all this year? Or, I was just curious about him.
So I'll go reverse order on this. Jordan Elliott last year was probably about 310 pounds and often looked like a nose. In fact, I thought they should make him a nose. This offseason, he changed his body. I think he's down to like 290. He looks like a 3 now. And particularly the last 2 preseason games, he and Malik McDowell dominated. Like, they were just crushing it. So I don't think you immediately go, oh, Jordan Elliott's going to have a big season, but he certainly looks like an NFL player. He looks like somebody who's ready to contribute. This is like the thing. The Browns drafted Tommy Togiai, and he was a really popular pick. I think he will be very good down the road, but he's 20. He was drafted. He was 20. He's 21, and he's not NFL ready. And it's just because now you're trying to deal with grown ass men. Like, for the Chiefs, Joe Thuney is a grown ass man. You have to be able to take that on. So Jordan Elliott, in a lot of ways, was doing what rookies do. They lose. They don't play with it much technique. They're just not as physically strong as they need to be for the NFL. So I think he's worked really hard to get ready. And if the last 2 preseason games are any indication of where he's at, he was much better, quicker, getting penetration, just showing off his strength. Obviously, he's at Mizzou. He was a power player that had a little bit of wiggle at the end, which is what was attractive about him. So I think, Malik Jackson is likely their starting three in as much as they have starters. But yeah, I think Jordan Elliott is going to be a contributor. As far as Clowney goes, the Browns are very excited about him. This is the first training camp he's had in like 4 years.
Yeah.
Due to various issues, both injury and just not having a team at points.
Mm-hmm.
They keep talking about him exclusively as a defensive end, which is fine. Him and Myles Garrett are going to take away the ability for teams to sort of reach them and get outside. But particularly against a team like the Chiefs, they may just plop him right over Trey Smith and say, good luck. This because they have guys like Takk McKinley. They can put Myles Garrett on one side, McKinley on the other. They can put either Malik McDowell or Malik Jackson alongside Jadeveon Clowney, who's really good at collapsing the pocket. And if the Chiefs are planning on having Mahomes step up in the pocket more, that is what Clowney does well. He's just a power player who's going to disrupt and get pressure of the middle. He may not generate sacks, but in terms of like his career, but he's going to create plays for other teammates, and having Garrett alongside him should allow him to put up, the Browns are obviously hoping he finally cracks double-digit sacks, but that dynamic is certainly one that the Browns are excited about. And the fact that they can move either one of those guys up and down the line is something they see as a huge advantage.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I'm excited for that matchup. And flipping sides real quick, another matchup I'm interested to see is more so the Chiefs defensive front versus the Browns offensive line, and in particular their running game. We all know the history the Chiefs have with Kareem Hunt, and I know he's a guy that every time these two teams play, he wants to do well against his former team. Not that, like, I know last time there was a big fuss about what he said about how it was going to be a personal game and everything, which doesn't really make sense when you look at the reason why the Chiefs cut him. But at the same time, like, players will look for anything to motivate them, and I understand that. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Kareem Hunt, he's a guy that I think he's going to be playing probably 110%. Not that he doesn't go 110% in all of his other games, but like, he's going to be playing with, that chip on his shoulder. And then you also have Nick Chubb. I mean, this is probably the best running back duo in the league. And now the Chiefs are facing kind of injury issues already with their athletic second-year linebacker, Willie Gay, going on IR. He's only expected to be on there a few weeks, nothing major, but he's not going to be playing in this game. And then the Chiefs made a lot of changes to their defensive line this year. Chris Jones is no longer going to be in the middle, at least not in early downs. He's going to be playing at defensive end. And they made the Jerron Reed signing. So I'm really interested to see how the Chiefs handle the Browns rushing attack. They were able to hold it largely in check in that playoff game, but obviously it's easier said than done to do it a second time.
Well, the big reason they were able to do it the first time is the Chiefs ran that single high and played basically press man across the board, and basically dared the Browns receivers to beat them, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So they had everybody else focused on Chubb, and it worked really, really well. Chris Jones had a number of impact plays against Wyatt Teller inside. I won't be surprised if Chris Jones is nominally at end. Now, he'll be theoretically lined up against Jedrick Wills, the second-year guy, so that could be a good matchup for them, but I won't be surprised if he's back inside quite a bit.
Yeah.
But as far as Hunt goes, what I'm hoping they do is they use him far more as a space player and less as a running back, because he's not good in terms of vision. When he was with the Chiefs, he always had a fullback that showed him where to go. With the Browns, you can see where he has issues, and it doesn't help that he's playing with Nick Chubb, who's arguably got the best vision in the league.
Yeah,
where you can see him missing yards. But when they've used him sort of split out or just as a space player, he's been really, really good. He gave the Baltimore Ravens problems last year doing that. And against the Chiefs, I mean, you put him out there and just throw him the ball. Now you're asking your DBs to tackle him, which is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, you and I both know Kareem Hunt can make guys miss, and he can make guys miss tackles. It's one of the things he's really, really good at.
So that becomes like, to me, I think they should sort of model Kareem Hunt after Alvin Kamara at this point.
Yeah.
He's not going to be Kamara, but he's strong. He's quick. He's got enough juice to make plays, and he's a good pass catcher. So he doesn't need to be like a tremendous route runner to cause problems. But with the guys they're getting back, obviously, last year Odell Beckham was out. That was part of the reason they could just play man, press man across the board. They have Donovan Peoples-Jones coming back as a second-year guy who's they're more excited about. And their tight ends, which did have some success against the Chiefs, David Njoku and Austin Hooper can create some issues. But the Chiefs are built to stop the run with, Derek Nottie is good. I don't know what Jerron Reed's going to give them at this point, but they're clearly designed to say, you're not going to run on us. We're going to put you in obvious passing situations. That's where it gets interesting to me, because despite the fact that the Browns were down to a third string left tackle in Blake Hance last year, he shut down Frank Clark.
Don't even get me started on Clark, man.
And then obviously now that if they do kick Chris Jones inside, now they're going to have Alex Okafor to sort of bring in as a little extra athleticism off the edge.
Yeah.
How does that dynamic play out? I mean, the Browns offensive line isn't going to be afraid of anybody, but a guy like Chris Jones is just that good. He takes a backseat to nobody, and he's a problem. So do they give him extra attention to try to mitigate what he's able to do? I think a lot of what the Browns are counting on is that guys like Odell Beckham are going to force them out of being able to play one high. I don't see any scenario where the Chiefs are going to go, oh, Odell Beckham's out there. Yeah, we'll just have Mike Hughes guard him one-on-one and see how it goes. So are they going to now have to presumably play more too high? Are they going to be more creative with how they cover Beckham? And now that creates theoretically more space for Chubb. Is he now able to get going from that standpoint? So, the Browns, by virtue of their injuries and by virtue of how slow they were and their lack of a vertical passing game, particularly the second half of last year, made the Chiefs defense look way better than it should have. So I think in a lot of ways, there's this sort of weird fear about the Chiefs defense, but in reality, the Browns should be just better than the Chiefs defense, because the Chiefs defense has what I think are probably about 4 really good players or impact players for them, like L'Jarius Sneed, maybe in for a big second year after a pretty good rookie year.
Right.
But like, nobody's going to Charkandrick Ward and Mike Hughes and going, these guys are shut down corners.
Yeah.
Nick Bolton is a rookie. Don't know what we're going to get from him. For some reason, Dan Sorensen starts for a team. Like, these are things where I don't know how this is going to go and why anyone should be afraid of them. So in that respect, I think in a lot of ways, the Browns get out there, just need to sort of show themselves that they can do it and they'll be fine, because that's just not what the Chiefs really are right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, let's be honest. The Chiefs, their bread and butter is on offense. I mean, their defense, it's good enough to get by, and, they will have good games. And I think they can be a top 15 or so defense. But if you play the right game against them, you can do pretty well. And you mentioned how the tight ends were kind of a factor in that playoff game, or on the offense later in the year. The tight ends kind of became more involved David Njoku, he's a guy I'm sure Browns fans are frustrated with, but he abused Travarius Ward in that playoff game and was like actually a factor in their offense. And I'm like, hold up now, when has this ever been a thing? And the Chiefs, they've struggled against tight ends. I mean, you've seen it in the Super Bowl. Rob Gronkowski had a really good game against the Chiefs. They've struggled to cover tight ends. Heck, they let Rob Gronkowski in the regular season have his first 100-yard receiving game since the Miami Miracle in 2018. So like, that's they struggle. Dan Sorensen, he's a guy that he makes a lot of plays. He'll make a lot of clutch plays, but he'll also, be really bad in coverage the other half of his snaps. So that's an interesting aspect too. And you mentioned it with the Chiefs DBs. Are they going to be able to cover Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and that whole crew? And then Austin Hooper's out there too. I mean, the Browns, they have a full arsenal this time to attack the Chiefs in many different ways. And then also, real quick, going back to the Chiefs D line, moving Chris Jones out to edge is really interesting because now really what allowed it to happen was them signing Jarron Reed, because Jarron Reed gives them another competent defensive tackle that can rush the passer, which they didn't have before, which allows them to move Chris Jones out to edge. So now he kind of frees up things for other guys. Frank Clark, I've been really frustrated with him. The hope is that he's really, I mean, we're looking at basically a pseudo contract year for Frank Clark, because he is, if you can save like $14-15 million cutting him next year if he doesn't have a good year again. So a lot of Chiefs fans have their eyes on him, and the defensive line is a lot deeper than it's been in the past too, in my opinion. They have a really deep defensive tackle rotation, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle the run from the middle now. Excuse me, but yeah, I mean, there's so many moving parts and so many different things that could happen that I'm real interested to see how the Chiefs defense handles the Browns offense.
Yeah. David Njoku has all the promise in the world, and for various reasons, it hasn't happened. Though the end of last year, he was as good of a blocking tight end as there was in the league. And then he sort of really turned it on as a receiver. I mean, the one of the balls he caught in that game, if you can just find still photos, he jumps up, his feet are even with like the Chiefs defender's head or shoulders. Like he's just that kind of freaky guy.
Yeah.
So there are quietly a lot of optimism with him and Hooper, who had a relative down year last year as a receiver. I think if he just regresses to the mean, they're going to be in really good shape. So that becomes an added dynamic for them, in addition to the fact that they've got Beckham. So now they've got all these different things that can potentially create space, whether it's for the running game or, like I said, guys like Kareem Hunt and now Jarvis Landry, who's slimmer because he was absolutely dreadful in that game last year. So they've got reason to be very confident. They've just got to sort of prove it to themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just got a couple more questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up. First one being, do you think the Browns did enough in the secondary? Do you think they've built it up enough to truly stop this Chiefs wide receiver core? Because yes, and you kind of have to include Kelsey in that group too, but because he's basically a wide receiver playing tight end, he's just got that big body. But I mean, even though they don't have Sammy Watkins anymore, McCole Hardman, everyone's hoping for a big year from him, and they got other guys on the roster that can give them what Sammy Watkins did. I feel like the presence of Sammy Watkins while he was with the Chiefs is a tad bit overstated at times, because if you look at his overall production and the amount of games he actually played when he was here, I mean, he's really easily replaceable. Last year, he only gave the Chiefs like 400 yards and a couple touchdowns. I mean, I think they can do enough to replace that with other guys. But anyway, do you think the Browns secondary, and I think this was their plan heading into the offseason, was load up on the secondary as much as possible and just hope and pray that it's enough to beat the Chiefs and your offense scores enough points? But do you think there is a scenario where the Browns secondary shows out and Patrick Mahomes has a rough day and these receivers just can't get open?
I think the Browns did enough relative to what can be expected.
Right.
They made significant upgrades to both corner and safety. John Johnson was a huge signing. Ronnie Harrison was good last year. Now he's surrounded by way more talent, so he should theoretically be even better this year. Denzel Ward is good. Potentially, if the Browns are playing more man coverage this year, if he's going to have a true breakout year, this would be it. They draft Greg Newsome, who they love. He's going to start. And then if you look at it, they've still got Grant Delpit, who it remains to see how much they're going to use him early coming off the Achilles. But if they want to go three safeties, they can bring him in. So they're really confident with that group. Greedy Williams now becomes the third corner, in terms of a boundary guy. So they've got three guys with unending speed that are good there. They add Troy Hill as a slot corner.
Yeah.
They feel really good about that. So, like, if you were, like, as I said, if you were trying to, like, say who is really well equipped to stop the Chiefs offense on paper, the Browns are it. It's just, can they be ready to go in week 1 to do it? I have my doubts. I think by the time, assuming everybody stays healthy, by the time we get to the postseason, they might be able to do it. I don't know what a rough game really constitutes for Mahomes, given how talented he is, but between the guys they've added in the secondary and the group they've got up front, they have the potential to create a lot of problems for Mahomes. They're specifically designed to deal with offenses like the Chiefs and the Bills. So, I think Joe Woods deserves a ton of credit for holding the Chiefs to 22 points last year. I was expecting to be like 50. So he's capable of doing it. Now he's got the pieces he wants. They've got theoretically everything they want. Now it's a question of, can they be ready to go week 1? You never know really what you're going to get from week 1 in any league. So I have my doubts that it's going to come out great, especially when you're going against Patrick Mahomes. And more importantly, I think for this particular aspect of it, Andy Reid, who's historically outstanding with this much time to prepare.
Yeah.
He has a tendency to pull screens out of nothing that absolutely create instant offense. So I don't think they'll be quite ready for week 1, but hopefully they show well enough that gives you hope for later in the year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was going to mention that too, if you didn't. It's basically Andy Reid coming off the bye week, because you have that 2-week gap between the last preseason game and week 1. And Andy Reid is superior coming off the bye week. And also the Chiefs, they changed so much. I mean, with their offensive line and, what they're going to do with their offense. I think, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he didn't get a lot of, he didn't get a training camp last year, so he didn't get a lot of run in the passing game because I don't think they had time to incorporate that. That's something that I think you'll have to look out for now. Jerick McKinnon is an underrated signing they had this year, kind of a Swiss Army knife of sorts that I'm sure they'll use a ton. So another disadvantage for the Browns is that while not only do they have to worry about a team that, is coming off a bye week with Andy Reid, but they also got to worry about basically a whole new offense, because there's so many things they're going to be doing differently now. And I mean, we saw glimpses of it in preseason, but they can run power now. And that's not something they typically did in the past. The Chiefs are now capable of running it down your throat, in my opinion, which they weren't able to do before, which opens up other things. So I think that's ultimately what it's going to come down to is, what do the Chiefs look like on offense? And are the Browns going to be able to handle it? Because there's going to be new looks that the Browns probably weren't expecting. And the Chiefs also kept 4 tight ends this year. They rolled out 3 and 4 tight end sets in preseason. Are they going to know what to do? I'm not sure.
Well, I think from a Browns standpoint, they would really appreciate if the Chiefs roll out with 4 tight ends quite a bit. If they want to take Tyreek Hill off the field, I think they're good with that. As much as I really like the kid they got at Duke.
Agree.
I'm just not. I mean, certainly the ability to go multiple is something the Browns like to do anyways, for the same reason it causes problems. Are the Chiefs doing that for the sake of play action passing? I'm sure on some element they are, but it sounds like they're desperately trying, for the best reasons, trying to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire going in a meaningful way on the ground. And obviously their offensive line is big with Joe Thuney and Orlando Brown Jr. and Lucas Niang, that they're hoping they can at least get some movement up front. I would really like to see, as much as I did with the Ravens, the Orlando Brown Jr. pull. It's one of the more entertaining things you get to see on Sunday, because he's really awkward going around at 350 pounds and like 6'7". But yeah, it's in a lot of ways, it's an experiment for both teams. The Browns are really happy with what they have to defend teams like this, but now the Chiefs are trying to reinvent how they can attack them. So where does the rubber meet the road for that?
Absolutely. One more question I got for you, then we'll go ahead and we'll finish it off. But is there a player on the Browns that you feel like casual fans don't know of or aren't talking about, that could have a really big game or just a really big season in general, just someone we're not talking about that could be a surprise factor?
I've mentioned him before, but I think the guy that I don't know how many people know him is Ronnie Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
Their strong safety. They got him for a 5th-round pick from the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is unbelievable just on its face.
Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they were giving everyone away. You saw what they got in exchange for Calais Campbell. So,
yeah. They get him at the beginning of last year, right when the season started. He plays like a handful of snaps and like is immediately good enough that they have to put him as a starter. He really changed the face of that defense. And when they lost him to some injury stuff, it made a big difference. Now he's surrounded by John Johnson, Troy Hill, Greg Newsome. So the upgrades around him may allow him to be that much better. So he's the guy I think that as much as people are looking at this defense and looking at the names like Johnson, Ward, Myles Garrett, I think Ronnie Harrison is poised for a big year.
Awesome. I'm glad we were able to get this to happen because I really appreciate your insight. And everyone, make sure you go follow Pete on Twitter. I'll make sure to link it in the description. And Pete, you want to remind everyone one more time where they can find you?
@_Pete Smith_ on Twitter, si.com/NFL/Browns for the website. And yeah, we're delving into the Chiefs as we get ready to finally get going on this season. This last week in particular has been rough.
Yeah, it's here. It's here. Everyone needs to be ready because the season is here and I can't believe we're already this close. But yeah, all that being said, thanks again, Pete. And for those of you watching, we will see you on the other side of this Chiefs-Browns matchup.